Hey, look what we have found. A big sound in a small town. Far away from the bright lights. They're making music every night. Discover what is all around. A big sound. A big sound. In a small town. Big sound, small town. A really big sound. Big sound, small town.
You're listening to Big Sound, Small Town with Sandy Carlton.
Hi, welcome to Season 4 of Big Sound, Small Town. I'm your host, Sandy Carlton. Join me as musicians tell their stories about how they became musicians and the stories along the way.
Hi, my name is Robby Buff. I'm a local musician here from this area. Honored to be on the podcast today.
I'm glad to have you here. I don't know what it is with you guys from Lincoln County. I can't get you to come up here. I mean,
well, they don't let us out a lot up there, you know.
Well, I can understand it. I spent some time living there,
Yeah.
so I can understand.
Yeah, well, we won't leave the greatest place on earth.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I don't know. A lot of good musicians there. That's the thing. You just can't get them to. They don't want to talk about it.
Well, you know, you get up with me and I'll herd them this way.
That'll be good.
You want to interview.
Because in Cleveland County, they all know they're good and they all want to talk about it.
So we don't know we're that good in Lincoln County.
Exactly, yeah.
They usually don't let us out enough to get any feedback
Right.
other than from family and friends.
Yeah, so while you think you're great, you just don't hear it from anywhere but Lincoln County people. Yeah.
Except for my wife who tells me I suck.
Oh, yeah, well, that's part of their jobs, you know.
Well, absolutely.
I have this theory that sound men and wives are husbands of musicians going to heaven for free. They don't matter what happens, because you're either a sound man or the spouse of a musician, you get a get in heaven free pass.
Oh yeah, yeah. Well, you know, my wife has put up with me and my multitude of guitars over these
Exactly.
years, and she said one time, said, I can't go to a conference. Said if I come back home from a conference, guess what? There's a new bass guitar sitting in the house somewhere.
Yeah, I have this friend, Todd Hamby, and his wife always says, "Up's pulled up today. It better not be a bass guitar in here," you know.
Have you seen the meme that's on Facebook where it's Death, and he's talking to the guy, and he goes, "Hey, your new bass guitar just showed up, and your wife signed for it. Do you want to just come with me now?"
That's funny. No, I hadn't seen that, but you know, you get all the, and we can talk about it since we both play bass. You've seen all the bass player jokes. I mean, everybody, you know.
I've been the brunt in most of the
Yes, I have too. So, yeah, and occasionally, a local guy that we've talked about, Art Mooney.
Yeah.
Occasionally just says, I'm a bass holder, not a bass player. So
Yeah, Art's an incredible bass player.
he is. And compared to him, I guess I am a bass holder. But
Well, you know,
I'm working.
It's all relative, you know. As long as
it is. I mean, yeah, you can always find somebody better and worse than you.
yeah. Well, you know, the last bass player joke that my buddy Tommy Smith hit me up with, he said, "How many bass players does it take to change a light bulb?" And the answer is none. The keyboard player will just do it with his left hand.
Oh, I used to play in a band. I was a guitar player, but he would tape off the keyboards. He'd take duct tape and slide it down like the last half of the register and write on the duct tape, "I play these notes." You know?
Yeah, the keyboard players are bad about that.
Oh, they are. You know.
Get in your own lane.
Oh yeah, they are. It's like, and keyboard players say, "Why do we even have this guy?" You know.
Yeah. Well, you know, that's one thing in the band I'm in, State Line. That's the blessing in that is I actually get to play guitar on a couple songs because he can play bass on keyboard.
Right. Yeah.
And we do it on a song that basically has no prominent keyboard line.
Right.
So he just gets to play bass. And
Well, a lot of times I can do it, and it depends on the songs and how complex they are. But A lot of times I just won't play bass and play harmonica on some of the songs we do. You know, I mean, other things I can put a neck brace on and do, but some things that I can't do both, so I choose to. And we have a 17-year-old pedal steel player that plays with me now that's just incredible. He's a child prodigy.
I love pedal steel.
And he can cover my bass line sometimes on his pedal steel while I play
That's
harmonica.
cool.
So that works pretty good. But yeah, bass guys take a beating.
Oh yeah. We never get the accolades.
Did you start out as
rightfully deserve?
Oh, definitely. Did you start out as a bass player?
No, started out as a guitar player, and I was playing with a bunch of guys who were older than me, and they're like, "Well, if you want to jam with us, you're gonna have to play bass."
Sure. I mean, that's how I became a bass player.
I'm like, I don't really want to do that, and I was like, okay, well, you know, I'm getting to play, so I had this little silver tone. And start out with, I just tuned the strings down so low, they weren't even in the right tuning, but that was my bass starting out. And then my mom and dad bought me a Gibson Grabber.
Oh.
The first bass I ever had. It was like, you know, and for them that was a stretch. And
I loved at the time. I loved a grabber.
Yeah,
A little bit heavy, but I loved it.
And I think my original Grabber, which was stolen, is at Guitar Wishes back there in the repair shop. And I've been on Roger and them, look, man, find out if this guy wants to sell this thing or not. Because for my mom and dad, you know, to take that leap, you know, because they were not rich people.
Right.
And to go, this is something he probably won't stick with, you know.
Yeah, right.
It's the same apprehensions everybody has about their
Right.
children. To go out on a limb and buy me a nice enough bass that I could actually learn how to play.
Right.
And then I begged my mom for a greatest hits of 1971 or whatever. It was 8-track tape, bootleg 8-track tape at the old Maxway variety store in Cherryville there.
Right.
And it had Starship Trooper on it by Yes. And I was at that point I was like,
That's what I want to do.
I want to be this guy, whoever he is, and I'm going to find out everything I can find out about him. And then the next bass I bought was that '73 Rickenbacker that my mom and dad co-signed a loan for me to get at Southern National Bank in Cherryville.
That's funny.
And I paid $250 for it. It was 1973 4001. I bought it in 1977, 76.
That's a good deal back in those days.
I still have that.
That was expensive even for those days, though.
Yeah, I mean, I made like $27 a month payments for
Ever, I know.
yeah, forever.
So it seemed like it at that time. I'm sure it did, you know. But oh yeah, that bass these days.
And I've been a Yes Rush fan.
Well, if you're going to be a Yes fan, you had to have that Rick.
Well, I learned everything I could learn about Chris Squire, and I'm not saying I can play any of that because you know that would be sacrilege. You know, Chris was incredible. Geddy Lee's incredible.
Yeah.
Entwistle. Those are the guys I grew up with. Gary Thane of Uriah Heep was another big influence growing up.
They're all great bass players.
Oh, absolutely.
I mean, every one of them were great bass players. Well, you made the switch pretty good, and with quality instruments actually. So once you did it.
Yeah, that helped a lot. And then, you know, we talked about I bought that Fender Bassman amp. And just really, you know, and if I'm teaching a lesson or anybody's asking me about, you know, what should I do for my kid, I was like, well, don't get them a real expensive guitar, but get them one that's playable.
The playable, I agree totally. That's what I try to tell people too. You take the fun out of it for them, and if you get them an instrument that is too hard for them to play.
Yeah.
The first bass guitar I owned, a guy named Don Falkenberry built it in shop, and it was his. But then he got him a real bass, but he gave it to me, and it was terrible. I mean, if you played, I don't know, past about 3 frets. The intonation went all to pieces and all. But I played that bass for a long time, till I decided I wasn't going to be a bass player anymore. You know, and the only reason I did it was like you. There's a group of guys that played, and I was a new guy, so I had to be the bass player.
Yeah. You don't get to be Jimmy Page.
Exactly. Yeah. Well, at that point, I didn't get to be George Harrison, but
Yeah.
So and I had that bass for a really long time, which made me not want to be a bass player.
Yeah. Well, if it doesn't play well, and my dad, he didn't know a thing about musical instruments, and he, for Christmas one year, and I was maybe 17 or 18 at that point in time, he bought me an old Yamaha 12-string.
Right.
Well,
oh yeah,
it was, man, the neck was so bowed. I mean, you could probably go out and shoot an arrow with it.
Yeah.
It was that much better. It was just unplayable.
Yeah.
And I tried my best to took it, and they were like, man,
yeah, you can't
do anything with this.
Yeah, I mean, and that is for people starting out. The easier the instrument is physically to play, the more likely they'll stay with it.
In this day and age, there's so many really good entry-level guitars. Like Squire makes a good guitar.
Yeah.
Less than $200.
Sure, you can get them. You can get them at a reasonable price these days that are actually better than some of the supposedly good ones I had starting out.
Oh, absolutely.
So.
And nobody knew how to work. I mean.
Oh no! There's no guitar techs, no luthiers.
No. I mean, it was pretty much you. I ended up working on my own guitar.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I mean, you had to.
Yeah, I mean, all my Fender stuff I still work on.
Yeah.
My Rickenbackers, nah, not so much. That double truss rod makes me a little weary, especially on an old 4001, the fretboard. So it's so close, you can pop a fretboard real quick. So I take it up to Roger up at Guitar Wishes and let him do it.
Yeah, that's I am fortunate to have a friend that is a luthier. We played in a band a long time together, and he still does all my guitars. When I played with him, my guitars never worked better in my whole entire life because he tinkered on them after almost every job. He'd pick it up when we were loading up. Hey, this needs to be adjustable. Okay, adjust it. So I've been lucky like that. But
it's almost like wax in your car. You swear it's faster after that.
Right. Oh yeah, yeah. So then, but for years I had no one. I knew no one to fix anything. So I kind of learned, the basic stuff, swapping pickups out, general adjustments. Although I learned about truss rods in all the bad ways too.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I think everybody did that at some point in time.
Because I didn't. It wasn't like I could look it up on the internet like you can today. And you can learn how to repair your guitar, your instrument, whatever instrument it is, and learn how to play it all on YouTube.
Oh man.
I dropped the needle on records over and over and over.
So getting ready, I have albums, and I still listen to a lot of vinyl. But some of those albums are so scarred up from trying to learn those songs.
Sure.
And now, if I'm playing in a cover band like State Line, Line, if I'm learning something, and I'm like, I'll go pull up. Somebody's got a lesson on YouTube.
Oh yeah. Oh, and these days, you can pull up tab. I have tab on my phone, for songs that as a band, we might get in we might decide we're going to learn 3 songs this week. Well, the first thing I'll do just about, even before I listen to it, is pull up the tab for it,
Absolutely.
And I won't look at it, but I'll have it there so when I can't figure it out, so I'll find it on tab.
Well, I mean, I like looking at the tab. I mean, a lot of times tab's incorrect.
Oh, well, a lot of them it is.
Like I said, learning them off albums, you learned. You had to hear it.
Oh, yeah, you did.
And I look at the tab and I go, that's not right.
Yeah, I've done that many times.
But it gets you started.
It does. And one of the things I learned, too, about records sometimes it's kind of different is, the person that recorded it, and they don't record it, we'll just use E. We'll use any key. But, they could do it in E, but then say the people you're playing with, E's not a good, they need to either move it up to G or move it, down to D or something. And then, depending on the instrument, the way the strings are open and all, in E, you do, and you have to readjust, which is something that tab doesn't do, and something that, and you have to try to figure out. Then I see a lot of people do stuff in the same key that it was recorded in, but cannot sing it in that key.
Yeah.
You know?
I bought one of the Digitech drop pedals.
Yeah. Oh, that's a great pedal. I love that pedal.
And, you know, if it's something needs to be a half step down,
Yeah.
I just reach, turn the button
Yeah, that's
and
great.
hit it. And that way, because I'm telling you, setting up a bass, if you're playing something a full step down and you have to swap out,
True.
and I'm not going to I don't want to go through and set up a bass
Yeah.
for a full step down,
Right.
then I'm going to play on one song
Right.
a night.
Well, it's like all the drive-by trucker stuff. Their whole deal is they're all tuned a whole step down. So, you know, it's like if you want to replicate that, then you got to tune down or do something. But, yeah. And I had a guy on the show who was David Allen Coe's bass player. David Allen Coe did his whole show except for 2 songs in the key of F. And so he tuned his bass to an open F.
That works too.
So, I mean, I'd never heard that before in my life. You know, I mean, I've never known anyone to tune their bass to an open F. But,
I used to do that to learn a song,
yeah. Yeah.
knowing that, okay, if I'm going to play it here, I'll just tune the bass up.
Yeah.
You know, and that way that'll take care of that. And then I got the drop pedal, and that'll
Right.
kind of limit me trying to do like crazy tuning.
Yeah. Yeah.
But on the album, you would find a place back in the old technology where the song was actually in E,
Right.
but somewhere in the studio they were listening
Oh,
to it, and
yeah.
they didn't like the tempo or the speed, and it changed it. Rush Xanadu by Rush is that it's actually in between E flat and E.
See,
It's just a
Which-
hair slower.
yeah, I mean, you find that on records a lot, and you're thinking, why does this not match up? I mean, I always thought, well, okay, they didn't really have good tuners back in the day, and even pianos, which they used a lot to tune stuff with, they're probably off maybe a little bit. I mean, that used to get to me sometimes. Beatles stuff sometimes was weird, where it wasn't really, it really wasn't in the key. It's sharp or flat, and it's like,
And the story I heard is like whoever was in the studio first and had tuned, everybody would
true. I could
just tune to them.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, and back in the day, that was the case. I sit down. I went with a friend of mine to Doc Watson's house one time before tuners, and everybody tuned up. And he goes, well, somebody's a little bit out. I figured it was me because I was a new guy, and everybody's messing with your, everybody's working on it. He said, no, don't do that now. You're all out, you're just messing things up. It's bluegrass. It's close enough, So, but I always figured I was the one he was talking about. I don't know why, because I was a new guy, I guess.
Well, yeah, it's that new guy syndrome.
Yeah.
Well,
I
I'm the guy stooging everything up here.
And I probably was. I mean, if I told the truth, it's probably me.
Well, I was a bass player,
Yeah, yeah. Oh, no, then I was a guitar player.
Oh, you was a guitar player.
Yeah, oh, no. Bass player. I could probably figure out 4 notes.
Yeah.
I could probably get four strings close. I don't know about 6, but
I always have problems with that G and the B string is the one.
B strings are always...
drives me insane. I'll think it's in tune, and I'll play a chord and realize probably my fret hand is probably what's messing it up.
Could be. For a number of years, early in my life, for a pretty good while, I had perfect pitch. Now that I'm old, it's not anymore. I have a problem distinguishing between E and F these days. You can totally throw me there.
I don't trust my ears anymore.
I don't trust them anymore either. I had a kid in here, the pedal steel player I was telling you about. He came in and tuned 20 strings without a tuner. And I said, on his double neck pedal steel, and I said, you did that without a tuner? He said, yeah. I said, how close is it to, standard? And he said, well, I think it's pretty dead on it. And I said, well, you care if I take my tuner and check? Well, go ahead. And it was.
Oh, man.
So we go in there, there's a refrigerator in here. He said, well, I can pretty well tell you the pitch of anything. So we go in here and listen to the refrigerator, and he tells me it's an F, and there's a guy out here weed eating, and it was like it was like a D, it's like, okay, you convinced me. Because I take my tuner, and I'm pretty good. I'm still pretty good to know certain notes I'm dead on and know that that's what they are. So to see him well, at that point he was 16. To be able to do that was just pretty amazing to me.
I'm usually close. I usually start with A.
Yeah.
I can go A and then tune around that.
Well, and A works because that's kind of the A440's kind of
Right.
been the standard in our lifetime anyway. I mean, I know.
Well, I mean, that was a tuning, like when they break
Sure.
out the
Tuning forks, yeah.
You know, and you get that A
Yeah,
40.
and that's probably I never thought about it, but yeah, I could probably start there pretty easily and go from there.
I might be a little bit off, but I can go there still pretty good.
Yeah.
I didn't even own a tuner.
Right.
Till probably the 1990s.
Yeah, I didn't own them for a long time. But I played in a band that had one of the early strobe tuners. You remember those things?
We had one of those con.
Yeah. And these things were just like,
Yeah.
And I look at it and I go, I still don't know if I'm in tune. Why don't I just tune it myself, you know? Or I would get one of them that would line up, and I was like, that's close enough. I can tune the rest of them.
Well, our tech, we had a tech, and we had one con.
Yeah, well, we had one too.
We had one, and he would tune all the guitars.
Right.
And I'd walk in and go, Steve, is this thing in tune?
Yeah.
Yes, it's in tune.
Yeah. I mean, I didn't own them for a long time. We had that big con, big old square box con. It's like, and we all used it. You're right. We all used it. Even the keyboard player sometimes would match his up and say, I might need to have this thing worked on, you know?
Yeah.
So, but yeah, I mean, I look back at a lot of stuff, old recordings, live recordings of when I played stuff, and, you know, we tuned to whoever was in tune when we got there. And I did a show one time, one of my funniest stories. So I don't think I can tell the whole story. So I'll go with just this part of it.
Can you change the names to protect the guilty?
Well, one of them's dead, so it doesn't really matter. I'll leave names out of it. So I was playing some Southern gospel music. I can't make this up. I was playing in a place called Crystal Sea of Galilee in Fish Camp. And on the back wall, they had a picture of the Last Supper. But it looked like I drew it, and I'm horrible. You know, it was terrible. And we played behind that. So we're getting ready to start the show, and both the guys hit their guitars, and they're both guitars are in tune, but they're not in tune with each other. You know? So one of them said, well, I heard Sandy's bass G, so I tuned that, and the other one said, well, I got perfect pitch. And so they kept arguing about it. So finally they said, the band leader said, y'all need to go outside and talk about this. So they go outside, and they're gone too long. So while they're gone, I took a tuner and tuned both their guitars. And so I look out, they've been gone too long. I look out there, and they both have fingerprints on their side of their face where they'd slapped each other over this. So they come back in, they pick up their guitars, and they go, it's a miracle. We were just, you know, God was showing us how you can get miscommunications going. They were both in tune all along, and we just did not open our ears to it. And there's a girl sitting there, and they said, let's pray about it. So they go to pray about it, and there's a girl sitting at the table right there at me, and she goes, you're not going to tell them.
Absolutely not.
You know, and they were thanking God for putting them back in key and for their bad ways of getting upset and not really, you know, closing their ears to the real true sound. And it's like, God and a Saban tuner. but that was one of the things you were talking about. Both of you could be in tune. I mean, they were. If you took their guitar, it was in tune. But
Yeah.
one was, you know,
Structurally, the chords were right.
right. Yeah, except one of them was probably half a step, you know, lower than the other because neither one of them used a tuner. You know, so.
It makes you, don't it make you happy that we're really considered, or we're identifying as bass players?
Yeah.
You know, not have to, because guitar players do stuff like that.
I mean, they do. Well, that's because guitar players know everything.
Oh, yeah.
There's a pecking order. You know, there's a pecking order that there is God. He's the singer. Mm-hmm. You know, no doubt about it. Doesn't matter. He's the guy. Then you go to the lead guitar player. You know, and he always knows everything, and he's better than everybody else. He's a real musician in the band. Rhythm player don't care. If they got a rhythm player, he don't care. Keyboard players all think none of these guys know nothing because it's all about piano and all about class. They can't read. They don't know anything.
Theory is at my fingers.
Exactly. Horn players the same way. Oh, y'all ain't real musicians because y'all don't play in B flat or F.
Yeah.
You know, and it's like. And rhythm players, I got a capo. I'm playing any position.
Yeah,
I
whatever
play
you want me to do, yeah.
whatever. But then you get to the bass players, and they're like, it's only 4 strings.
Yeah.
You know, no chords, 4 strings. How can it be that hard?
Well, somebody thought it was a great idea to add an extra string to a bass.
True. Yeah, 5
I'm
strings.
still struggling with that one.
Yeah, it's like, okay, so I own 5 string. I'll admit it. I never play it because here's what I figured. Duck Dunn, 4 strings. James Jameson, 4 strings. Barry Oakley, 4 strings. Well, there you go. You can use your Rush guys, 4 strings.
Yeah.
Why do I need a 5th string? You know?
I own 2 of them, and I hate them.
Yeah, I hated mine.
With a passion.
Yeah, I hate them.
With Michelle Lee, the way, I play her, I basically am her touring player. I haven't recorded anything with her.
Right.
But half of everything that she's got recorded.
I have 5 string.
Got that low B or C or a D in there somewhere that you got to go back. And I try to play around it, and I thought, well, I'll just drop D on the string.
Which works on
some stuff, but not all of it.
But
not all of it. But I feel like I'm playing uphill.
Yeah. Well, also, I'll forget as the night goes along. I'll forget that it is a 5 string. You know, and I'm going for where I was playing stuff when that top string was an E. You know, it's like, oh man, I'm not even close.
I was arguing with the guitar player. He was like, "What note? Where does it go there?" And I went, "Man, it's a B. It's a B." And I'm on the E string on the 5 string.
Right, and the guy's going, "That's not a B." That's why I hate them. I mean, I do own one, and I don't know why.
I don't own any expensive ones.
No, me either. No, I don't either. And the very few times, just for fun, I even brought them to practice. They're like, "What are you doing? You'd only use 2 strings anyway."
Yeah.
Really, those other 2, those bottom 2 strings, how many times do you even play on them?
Well, my wife, being the practical person that she is, and she's a musician too, she said, really, you should take this to every rehearsal, every gig that's in a restaurant somewhere where people are just there to eat, not really paying attention to the band, and learn how to get used to this thing and play it. And I'm like, nah.
I mean, I'm the same way. I hate those things. I'm a bass player. I'm not that smart. I don't need 5 strings. 4's enough. You know.
Yeah, 4's enough, and I'm still going down the rabbit hole of fretless.
Well, okay, so I play violin. Fretless is not too much a stretch for me because I've been used to shifting in off a wrong note forever. It's easier to do on a fretless. You know, I mean, okay, I can play a wrong note on every job we ever do. I mean, in fact, people that I play with call them a Sandy Carlton note. You know, it's not a right note, so you shouldn't play it, but you're going to play it anyway. But on a fretless, I can slide into it once I realize it's wrong. But on a fretted one, it's a bad note.
It's a bad note.
You know, I mean, you just hit the wrong note. But on a fretted one, I can just slide it on up and make that slide sound like it was intentional.
You know, and I'll go, well, that was Tony Franklin's style.
Yeah.
Tony's a great fretless
player.
He
is. I agree.
And I'll go, that was Tony Franklin.
Yeah.
And if I'm doing Boz Burrell from Bad Company, who you couldn't even tell he was playing a fretless bass.
Oh, yeah, that's true.
He was that precise. He was so good, And, but yeah, we're doing, in State Line Crossing, we're doing the song Bad Company and moving on.
Right.
I'll break out the fretless and play on it. And Michelle's got 3 songs that require fretless bass. So.
I also play upright bass, so fretless is not a stretch for me. I mean, I feel comfortable on a fretless. I don't feel comfortable on 5 string. You know.
No. Well, yeah, and that's the thing. Is like I said, I hadn't played, any kind of upright bass.
Yeah.
And I think I told you a lie earlier. Jake Fulbright, if you know Jake, Jake had a fretless bass at his house. He said, "Can you play this thing?" And I was like, "Well, yeah, I guess
Yeah,
so."
I can.
Yeah, wrong. I really couldn't. It really was pretty bad.
Well, you know, so I play a okay upright bass, nice bass, good, plays well. So this guy that I know says, he hires me to go out and play with him. He said, "You can play my mom's." She had died, you know, her 1948 K bass, man, and you won't have to even take yours out. You know, we'll put it on the bus. I said, "That's great." I go out and that thing, the strings were so high off the fretboard that I remembered that his mom always had tape on her fingers, and I know why. She couldn't fret it. She could just slap open notes. Is all she played was, you know, everything was either in G, and she'd do the G and D strings open, you know, or everything was in A, and so she could play them all open strings, and she just slapped it. And I told her, I said, "Never again am I taking, you know, either you need to fix her bass." And why? I said, "Why did you do that? To let your mom have to do that?" And he said, "Well, that's just the way she started out playing." I said, "Well, so mine, you can fret it, you know, I mean." You know.
I might could play that. That was the problem, the one that Jake had at his house. I was like, man, you know.
Oh, yeah. Oh, they are.
And I'm like, you know, and I'm trying to pluck, and
Yeah.
it's a little different than playing, you know, you're more from the side.
Because you can turn it almost into one of the things you can't really do as well on an electric bass is you can almost make it percussive. I mean, you can play it.
Yeah.
You can pop the strings, or you can beat on the strings and they'll hit the fretboard, and it's really cool. I mean, you get an extra sound that you can't get out of an electric bass.
Well, yeah, and then you listen to all these old bluegrass guys.
Yeah.
And they are the percussion.
They are.
You know, there's no drums in that, but that bass is also hitting a bass note. It's also the
sure.
percussion of the time is the watchkeeper.
You slap that off, and you got a mandolin chop, and you got a snare drum and a bass drum.
It just amazes me that, you know, that people are able to do that, because that's like kind of an alien. I can play it, but it's not really, that's not my wheelhouse.
Right.
And I look at it, and it's just like what we talked about earlier, a lot of the funk players with the slap.
Sure, yeah.
I love it. I wished I could do it.
Yep.
But I don't, because
I don't do it much of it either.
I'm not any good at it. You know?
I can do a little bit of it, but it's not one of the things that I do either. You know, I admire it. I mean, you look at somebody like Victor Wooten, that's the craziest stuff. I mean, you can't even do that if you want to, you know?
No, I mean
that's just,
I saw him with Bela Fleck.
Yeah.
And, you know, and I was just like,
well,
wow, that's taking it to a whole new level, isn't it?
When you put he and Victor, you put Victor Wooten and Bela Fleck together, that's just two geniuses that you can't even play that stuff either if you want to. I mean, that stuff is,
like I said, that's just a whole nother level.
It's
genius to take basically a bluegrass concept, and take it into the realm of jazz, or
and beyond,
fusion, or whatever you want to call it.
And then you see his brother has that drum machine thing that's not real.
Future Man.
Yeah. I mean, that is some of the beautiful stuff about music, though, that makes music so good, is that there's a lot of different ways you can play it, and maybe you don't even care for some of it, but you still understand the creativity and the effort that goes into it.
Yeah, I mean, it's just a universal language.
It is.
It doesn't matter what country you're from, or your religious beliefs or anything. That common thread of music is just like it's ancient in our DNA.
It is.
You know,
it is, and you don't have to speak the language. You can sit down and play with somebody. They don't even have to play an instrument particularly that you know, but you can sit down and play with them and make it work. That's one of the really cool things.
I'm threatening fiddle. My wife's like, "We're going to go outside if you're going to do that."
Yeah, there's a lot of squeaking and squawking with it. And one of the things I've learned from me personally is I have to play it a lot to stay good at it. And the bowing part is probably harder than the fingering part. If you played music before, is not that hard.
Yeah.
But it's the bowing that's the problem.
The bowing, yeah.
So.
making that perfect strike.
Yeah, it is, and getting it to be consistent when you pull it or push it. You know, it's that part's hard, and some of it's rhythmic too. So you have to get that going kind of in a rhythm, which is it's the hardest instrument I ever learned to play.
Well, and, you know, and I say that, and getting older, you know, your hands hurt. Some days your hands feel better than they, you know, did the day before. So,
True.
you know, I can get up in the morning and go pick a bass up off the stand and can't play anything.
Sure.
And then other times I'm playing like I did when I was 20 years old. You know,
Yep.
it's just, but I never had that problem until I started getting older and my hands, fingers swell and get cramps. And
Some days I can't finger pick at all, and then other days I can't flat pick a guitar at all either.
Yeah.
I'll drop the pick. I mean,
just
you
can't
know,
grip it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, it's
Yeah.
just like I was better off not using a pick. You know, I mean, so as you age, it changes. But you know, I've learned one of the things I've seen musicians that I've known had Alzheimer's. I've seen musicians that I know are really, really old, but they can still play at a pretty high level. I mean, you might catch them one day and they stink, but the majority of the time they can probably still play close to the level they could when they're young. I mean, not real young, you know. I mean, I see young people that can play, and they're still getting their act together, but they can play so fast, so good, so clean. It's too many notes, but they learn before it's over with, you know.
I'm a much smarter player.
Oh, I'm way more, yeah.
Than what I was when I was in my dexterity was better in my 20s.
Sure.
But now, I mean, I don't know. It just seemed like it makes sense to me now. What was once was so mystical.
Right.
Now it's kind of like the veil has been removed, and you.
I think that just comes from a lot of playing over the years, you know. I mean, I always try to learn new stuff, but I don't know that I really ever do. But I think a lot of it just sinks in after playing for so long. I think stuff that I used to struggle with kind of comes easy now, and I think it's just because I've done it.
Well, the seeing it in my mind comes easier than actually playing it.
True.
Before I could, like, what's he doing there?
Right.
What's he doing there? What is this? What, you know?
Yeah.
And now I kind of see that, and sometimes, like I said, you know, it depends on whether your body wants to cooperate.
True.
You know, ibuprofen is your friend.
True, yeah.
You know, drugs and rock and roll now went from, you know, cocaine and all
Right.
that stuff. Now it's all metformin and
Yes, it is.
ibuprofen
Yes,
and
it is.
Zocor or whatever.
CBD oil.
CBD oil. I love my
You
CBD
know,
oil, man.
So, I mean, you know, that's part of the aging part of it, you know.
Wouldn't trade a thing, though.
No, well, I mean, I don't think you can trade a thing. I think there's a certain point in your life where once music takes a hold, you know how many times I've retired from the music business? I don't even have a lot of times. You know, I'm not going to do this. I'm not going to play this. I'm not going to play out ever again. It's never lasted. And you know, so many people always try to tell me what a blessing it is. It's equally a curse. I mean, how old are you now?
63.
You're 63. I'm 70. We're still out there trying to play.
I had that conversation with Jim Dandy Magnum
Yeah.
in Black Oak, Arkansas.
Yeah.
We were doing the American Heroes Music Festival in Coleman, Alabama.
Yeah.
Black Oak was the headliner. And horrible storms rolled through. Everybody's just kind of sitting in the little, you know, area there where they had the food and the beer and everything. And Jim Dandy comes by and, you know, I said, hey, Jim, man, I said, you know, I'm so glad to see you doing this. I said, man, I was listening to you back in junior high.
Yeah.
And Jim's like, telling your age there, ain't you?
Yeah.
boy?"
Oh, yes.
I'm like, well, no, it's kind of telling your age.
Yeah.
He said, but he said, you know what? He said, yeah, we're getting older, but here we are. Me and you sitting at this table having this conversation. We're still doing it, son.
Yeah, I know. I mean, I agree with that. You know, it's like my parents always thought I'd grow out of it, you know.
Yeah.
I'm still working on growing out of it.
I never will. I did quit. I didn't play when daughter came along, and she was very athletic, and she's playing fast pitch softball.
Right.
She was really good at it. So, and I'm one of those people that I wasn't just a band guy.
Right.
I also now played baseball and
Right.
football.
Right.
Dad was an all-state basketball player.
Right.
I can't dribble and chew gum at the same
Yeah, I
time.
understand. Yeah.
His disappointment, but she was very athletic, and so I ended up coaching her
Right.
all the way through. We played goal travel ball.
Yeah.
And she ended up full ride college.
I understand.
For softball. But when she went off to college, it was like,
Yeah, I'm free again. You
well,
know?
it's like I had a buddy of mine call me up and say, "Hey, we're doing an open mic night." He said, "Why don't you grab a guitar or something, come on out?" I said, "Well, man, I only got 2 basses left. I had the 77 Jazz and the old Rickenbacker
Right.
I never part with. Never say never, but I don't plan
Right.
on parting with them." But he said, "Well, I got an old Squire Stratocaster you can come play. Just come play some guitar."
Yeah.
So I went out there and started doing that, and here I am 30 guitars later.
Yeah, I know. I mean,
30
I do.
guitars later, playing in three different bands, and it's like it never really leaves you.
Right. Yeah, let's talk about the bands you're playing in while we're
Okay.
talking about bands. Because people need to come out and hear you. You know.
Yeah, they do. Yeah, we have a lot of fun, man. And I'm at that point where if I'm not having fun, I'm not playing.
Yeah. Well, I do understand
I
that.
play with a local band here. It's called State Line Crossing, and based out of Gastonia. And we do Wild Wing, Hickory Taverns, Freeman's.
Yeah.
That type of stuff,
Right.
it's real laid back, and the guys are, they're all great musicians. They're no egos. I mean, I love playing with them.
What kind of music is this?
We do like a lot of 70s and 80s stuff.
Okay.
We do some newer stuff, but we probably got 200 song
Right.
repertoire. So whatever we'll look at where we're playing
Right.
and kind of
Adjust accordingly. Yeah.
based off of that. And I even told the keyboard player Philip, I said, we really ought to put in our first 10 songs, kind of like they do in football, where they script.
Always script it there and then
Script
then
and
adjust.
see what really works, and we'll adjust after those
Yeah.
first 10.
I mean, I think that's not a bad philosophy.
And we can do that because, like I said, we can pull anything out of the hat.
Right.
And we had a request Saturday night for "You Shook Me on That Long Bass"
Yeah.
EPC, which
Oh, yeah.
we have never, that's never been in our set list.
Right.
Looked around the room. You good? You good? Yeah. Well, we did it.
Yeah.
It was horrible.
Yeah.
But it,
Oh,
made,
yeah,
it,
I
it
do.
made the crowd happy.
Oh, I played for Tips before, and one of the things I learned is, well, it's easier when you're by yourself sometimes, but if your band, generally, if one person knows it and you played with experienced musician, because they usually know the song, they just may not have played it. You can usually eke your way around.
Yeah, well, you
It's
kind of
easier.
hear it.
It's easier than saying no, we don't do that.
Well, yeah, I mean, and it made the group at the bar that requested that, they all got up and danced and had a good time, put money in the tip
Sure.
jar, and it was fun,
Yeah.
And I'm playing with a Nashville artist, Michelle Lee. She's Grammy nominated. She's got like 4 albums out. I've never recorded anything with her. I'm hoping we remedy that situation coming up soon. I would love to play on some
Right.
of her new original stuff, but they've always been like studio guys in Nashville.
Oh, of course.
Charlie Kelly, I don't know if you know Charlie. Charlie is her producer.
I do. I know who he is. I don't know him, but I know who he
Man,
is.
he's brilliant. He plays most everything on her stuff, and what he does, and he brings in some. We had, I think one of the guys from Molly Hatchet played on one of the songs.
That's pretty crazy.
Charlie Daniels, fiddle player. Charlie Daniels, harmonica player, had played on one of her cuts.
Right.
And, but yeah, we had a lot of stuff that was supposed to happen, but COVID kind of killed it.
Yeah,
But we're doing Southern Rock Woodstock. That's our next thing coming up, and that's in Waynesville. And I'll be playing bass with 2 of the guys from Ralston Collins band.
Okay.
They're going to come up, and we're going to do like 4 songs
Oh, that's cool.
with those guys, with Barry Lee Harwood and Derek,
Yeah.
the drummer.
Yeah.
And then I'm playing with your buddy of mine, Tommy Smith.
Yeah, Tommy.
We're doing a little side project called the Bastard Cats, which people go, what? And it's like, well, that name's like a fungus; it will grow on you.
Yeah, I like the name. Hey, it's good.
But we do a lot of Led Zeppelin, and that's a very talented band too. I mean, we have Chris Wallen, the former singer from Bad Romeo, Eric Taylor on drums from the Extraordinaires, and then Tommy from Dirty Grass.
Yeah, I mean, it's a good lineup.
It's a real good lineup. I mean, and again, I come home sore after every time we rehearse because I've laughed so hard, because the insults start as soon as you walk in the door, and it never ceases.
That's one of the things that people that aren't musicians do not understand how that works. In fact, if you're not a musician and you walk into any band rehearsal or band practice, you'd think everybody hated each other.
Oh, I
Particularly
know.
in the band I play in. I mean, you know, they're always, you know, musicians are just strange.
Well, that's where the name came from. We'd done something, and Eric was behind the drums, and he had kind of like a scowl on his face. And Tommy, who's got all these Tommy-isms, looks at Eric and goes, "What are you sitting back there smirking like an old bastard-headed cat?"
Oh, there you go.
Somebody, bastard cats.
Bastard cats. Yeah.
That's a great name for the band.
Oh,
Let's
yeah.
roll with that. So,
Oh, we sit around sometimes at band practice and just, my next band's going to be called, you know, we do that sometimes, you know, and it's like, musicians are just different. They're different.
I said it's a universal language, even in insult. You know, I'm blessed because, you know, I've been in bands where you had difficult people to deal with, and you had people that didn't pull their weight.
Sure.
But all three of the bands that I'm doing now, you know, everybody contributes. Everybody is, you know, super easy to get along with.
That's good. I mean, that's the way it needs to
You know,
be.
a lot of good communication. You know, you can bring up something. You can actually come up with a criticism that's not taken as a personal affront.
Right.
You know, and that's, you know, being a musician, that's gold.
It is.
Where
Oh,
you can
gosh,
actually
it is.
throw you know, it's like, man, I don't think
Well,
that's the right note, and nobody gets all
Right.
defensive.
Well, I mean, musicians do have egos, and a lot of times fragile egos too.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, you tell somebody like you just said, that's not the right note, or play. You know, well, like with drummers and with bass players, you know, sometimes somebody might say. There's a lot of different ways to play. I mean, we're going to simplify this as much as we can for people, but there's something like a tick-tock bass line. There's something like a walking bass line, you know. And sometimes if somebody's playing, we'll just take the basic tick-tock, and somebody goes, man, that'd be a lot better with a walking bass line. There's some guys that just go off the frame because of that, you know?
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's not rocket science.
No.
You know, you're
And
trying, the end result is to
Yeah,
put
exactly.
out the best
Sure.
presentation that you can do, whether it's a cover tune, it's an
Yeah.
original song.
let's try it this way.
Let's try
if
it
it
this
don't,
way.
if it doesn't work, big deal.
Big deal.
My feelings aren't hurt. We'll do it the other way. You know.
Yeah, whatever. Let's just try it.
Let's just try it.
Don't take anything off the table because
Yeah.
of your ego.
Yeah.
And you know, and you do have some bands to where that.
Oh,
certain,
I mean, I'm not
certain
even.
musicians that just won't
Sure.
fly with. You know?
I mean, you can go. I'm not. This got nothing to do with your ability to play. If I didn't think you could play it both ways, I wouldn't ask you to try it the other way. You
I'm
know.
kind of a meter Nazi.
I'm kind of bad about that too.
As being a bassist and a vocalist, it's like, look, man, if I can't get a breath here, you're playing it too fast.
Yeah.
And especially when we were doing the Rush tribute thing, the drummer
Yeah.
tended to push the stuff.
Sure.
And I go, you need to go listen to the live album or a live version of this. They slowed it down. It's not because they don't know what they're doing.
Right.
It's like, let's just say I'm playing that big heavy double neck,
Right.
and I'm playing keyboards,
Right.
and I'm trying to sing. I'm
Yeah.
trying to be, doing a Geddy Lee thing. The reason they slowed it down is because he's got to get his hands
Sure.
off the bass,
And play the keyboard.
get it muted,
Right.
and get his left hand in between those two necks,
Yeah.
which is not a big space, to get to the keyboards. So it's like, they're a critical tempo. Some bands think playing something faster makes it more energetic or more powerful, and sometimes
Well-
that's a father's thing for the truth.
I can also, I'm a little different. Now, here's the deal. I don't care really what the tempo is as long as it starts the same and ends the same.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, I may say, we may get through and say, wow, that's too fast,
Yeah.
Or boy, did we drag that. However, I'm fine as long as the tempo stays the same. And drummers, bless your heart, drummers, As you get tired, you either slow them down or you speed them up because you want it to be over.
Oh, God,
you
I played with a drummer, no names mentioned.
Yep.
But every time he would do a roll, his tempo would change.
Oh, come up, come back. Yeah.
Yeah. And then it's like, oh, wait a minute.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
We're dragging now.
I played with them sometimes as a bass player more than anybody else in the band. If you stay on your notes at that tempo, you can bring them back in sometimes.
Sometimes.
But sometimes you can't. You know, I mean, because they really are driving the boat, really. I mean, they really are the ones that's back there where you're going. I mean.
Yeah, and I've heard people say that's a bass player, but I've never considered myself that.
I think all you can do is keep it there and hope you can bring the drummer back in, because I really think the drummer's the one who's driving it.
Well, that's where they get that. Why are you giving me the stink eye?
Yeah,
You know.
yeah.
Like,
I mean, yeah, and I tempo's big for me too. Tempo and tone. Other musicians' tones bother me sometimes.
Yeah.
Particularly people's guitar players' distortions. There's 1,000 different distortions, and of the 1,000 different distortions, really and truly, for the most part, 96 of them don't work on every song that you want to put it on. You know?
It is just, to me, it's the tool in the shed.
It is.
You know, you're not going to play George Harrison with the same distortion
No.
that you play
Jimmy Page.
Jimmy Page
Yeah.
with, or, you know, you can't use a Rolling Stones guitar tone to play a Journey tune.
No, you can't. No.
I mean, it just doesn't work.
It does.
And tinniness bothers me. And
Tinniness bothers me too.
my tone bothers me if I'm not hearing it the way I want to hear
Right.
it. I'm another thing, I get real peculiar, especially using in-ears.
Right.
If I'm like not getting it dialed into where I'm hearing it just exactly the way I want to hear it, it bugs me all night long.
Well, being an old man now, I don't change my settings a lot now, because and sometimes for different rooms you have to change them a little bit. But if I hit on something, I take a picture. I take my phone and take a picture of the settings on both my bass and my guitar. It's like I'm too old to remember where these were, and you know, sometimes when you slide them in a bag or you know, it gets
hit.
and they won't be the same. But so being old, if I like it, I take a picture of it. And I'll use it that way until it doesn't work. I mean, until you play a different room or someplace else that's not working.
Yeah, and I kind of leave that up to, you know, I said using in-ears, as long as I'm constant on what I got, what I'm hearing, I can play.
Right.
You know? Now, I do want it to sound the way I want it to sound.
Right.
To front of house.
But see, the in-ear would bother me. Is that really what I'm sounding like? I'd be freaking about that a little bit. Now, I like in-ear for vocals.
Yeah.
But in-ear for my bass would freak me out a little bit, I think.
It took me a long time to get used to it. And I was doing Rock of Ages, the Broadway thing.
Yeah.
And they were adamant, you know, we can't have amps,
Right.
really amps on the stage, especially not a bass amp.
Right.
And it was at the Lincoln.
Oh, well,
Hall
if it's
Center.
everything's running direct, then of course I have to
everything
hear
was
it.
running direct. And I was coming off my Tech 21 preamp,
Right.
which I can't say enough great stuff about those guys. You know, they're
I used their stuff for acoustic guitar for a long time.
Man, it's just, you know, with that RBI preamp I've got, I can go from everything from a very Geddy Lee tone to an old Fender Bassman,
Yeah.
Grand Funk tone. You know, I can dial all that in. I wished that the preamp was programmable so I could just pull these up
Right.
at will. Like I said,
Yeah.
different tool for different things.
Right.
But I got used to the in-ears. I hated it at first. I absolutely hated it. And then I ended up buying from Tommy. Tommy had a set of Weststone 5-driver.
Right.
And I've gotten to where now I actually hear the bass tones and stuff the way I want to hear it. And it's not tinny sound. And like I said, tint drives me crazy.
That would drive me crazy a bit, particularly in my ear.
Yeah, I mean, just not what I want to hear. And I'll still pop one out to get the ambient, you know, room.
Well, but the biggest thing for me is if I'm going to sing harmony, I have to be able to hear. You know, I won't drift on you on the harmony part if I can hear, but if I can't, I will drift. You know, I'll not sing the right part. If we're sitting here in this room singing, we're fine, but we get loud and I can't hear it.
Oh yeah, well I mean,
I'm terrible at it.
I'm real if I'm doing background vocals like with Michelle or something, I want to make sure that I match, the phrasing.
Sure.
And if you can hear,
You can't.
you can't really. You're guessing at that point.
And unless you've done the song a lot, I'm guessing on my harmony note if I can't hear it.
Yeah.
I mean the notes.
I'm not that good.
I'm not. I played with people. I play with a guy now, Kevin Bridges. He could sing harmony to anything, and won't even have to hardly hear it all. I've been lucky over the years to play with really, really good harmony singers who could find it. And I played with a girl for a long time, Nancy Owen, who had a voice that blended well with everybody. She could sing harmony to anyone just due to the fact that her voice had a quality that would blend with any type of voice. It didn't have a lot of it sounds terrible, but her voice didn't have a lot of color in it, so it fit everybody's.
Well, my wife used to do some voiceover stuff because she had a very neutral accent.
Yeah.
She really had no accent.
Right.
She's from here.
Right.
But they said, people go, are you from Nebraska? Because Nebraska, a lot of people who do broadcast work are from
Nebraska.
From Nebraska because of the neutral accent. And I've got the craziest accent in the world.
Oh God, my family is from mid-state South Carolina, and you talk about accents. I worked hard all my life to overcome those accents. I mean,
sometimes you just got to roll with it.
Yeah, sometimes you're stuck with it.
You're stuck with it. I'm proud of where I'm from, and then you get the little. My grandmother had a little bit of a brogue.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh yeah.
And then you get the little hint of Irish in there, and
one of the things I love, and I'll say this. One of the things that I am proud of, even with all the stuff that there is not to be proud of it in a lot of ways, I'm proud of being a product of the South.
Oh, I
am too. And I will tell you that is something you can't buy. Kid Rock's been trying to buy that his whole entire life. You can't buy it.
No, you either are or you aren't.
You are or you aren't. And I'm not saying that. I mean, we're not going into anything political here or anything like that. But it's just the soil and the earth and the air of living in the South. It's probably all rooted in humidity, to tell you the truth. But
thought about it that way.
It separates everything about being Southern from everyone else.
Well, and it's the culture.
It's the culture.
Such a mixed, blended culture.
It is
here.
It is.
And it's and a good example of that's Blackberry Smoke.
Yeah,
you listen to Blackberry Smoke, man. I mean, you hear that Georgia.
You do.
It is what it is. It's not everybody's cup of tea, but then again, neither is rap or fusion jazz.
Well, I grew up loving to read Southern writers. It's because I related to what they wrote about, but it's a different view, I think, of the world.
Well, and I guess at our age, we grew up in a South that was, and not in any political sense of the way or anything, but there's a Blackberry Smoke song we'll talk about. The only sound she made was the slamming, the screen door slamming shut. Well, I grew up in a house when I was a kid. We didn't have heat.
Yeah.
It was just an old coal stove, had coal deliveries.
I had a screen door on almost every house I lived in until I was pretty old.
That screen door slamming makes a sound that only if you've ever lived.
Yeah, exactly.
You relate to that.
You do. I was born in a house. So I mean, how many people do you know born in a house? I wasn't born in a hospital. I was born in a house that had a screen door.
Screen door.
I learned to play a lot of the music. I learned from sitting on the porch with my grandmother while the house cooled down because, they didn't have air conditioning.
No.
So you'd sit outside on the porch with mosquitoes and all that stuff. But I learned, not that I've used it a lot, except maybe at funerals and stuff that I've played, but I have a real working knowledge of, and I didn't grow up a Baptist, but I can tell you that I have a working knowledge of Baptist hymnal. I learned all those things sitting with my grandmother, who was a Presbyterian, but she did not think the Presbyterians' song,
She wanted that old swinging
she
gospel.
did.
Yeah.
She did. And, you know, she as she used to tell me, and I still tell people that, Presbyterians haven't written a new song since the 1300s. So, I mean, you know, and they were all for harpsichords and organs. So you know, I can go through I know 100 gospel songs probably. And probably it's like the songs, I can't remember the words really well to a song I wrote yesterday, but I can remember all those gospel songs that I learned as a kid. I can still remember every one of them.
Ingrained. My wife's family was from Stanley, and they were Abernathys. And they were all very musical. And on Sundays, they would all go to Grandmother Abernathy's house, and there was what 13 or 14 brothers and sisters.
No, Lord, yeah.
And they would all play.
Yeah.
And they would sing, and
Yeah.
she would cook. And it was always this Southern gospel.
Yeah.
The old Southern gospel hymns, you know.
Sure.
And, you know, my wife can still, she can still do all that. I grew up Presbyterian, and
Yeah, I mean, that's
and I didn't get really.
You don't, man.
I didn't get it. I didn't get all that. You know,
No.
I have a true appreciation of somebody that can play a pipe organ and get their feet going on the pedals.
Exactly.
And just absolutely, I'll go sit there and go, man, that's awesome.
Oh yeah.
But then that old.
But that's what you get in a Presbyterian church. But
Yeah.
but you don't get that in other churches. They're going to beat the old style piano out, and the people are going to sing real songs that you get a feeling for.
I had a drummer friend who was black, and I went to church with him, and this was been maybe in 1975, 1976.
Right.
And I thought, this is the greatest thing I have ever seen in my entire life.
Totally.
And at 2:00, we're going to eat.
Totally. When I was a kid, I went to a funeral at a black church of a friend of mine, and I thought, that's how you die, man. I mean, you know, instead of all this weeping and moaning, man, they just, you know,
yeah.
I thought, this is how it's supposed to be. These were uplifting songs, you know, I'm kind of that way today. When I die, I don't want anybody spending their time crying.
My grandmother had traditional Irish wake. It was 5
Oh,
days,
yeah.
5 days long.
Oh, yeah, that'd be cool.
There was lots of Irish whiskey consumed.
Yes.
She had it all written in her Bible that on the first day it's hamburgers and hot dogs.
Oh,
and
that's pretty cool.
St. Louis blues.
Oh, that's
she was like, now don't want Chicago blues.
Right.
I don't want Delta blues. I want St. Louis blues.
Sure.
Or Chicago blues. Yeah.
Scott Joplin type stuff.
Yeah, and
Bauhaus
she
stuff.
had everything. This was all planned
That's
out.
funny.
And her thing was like, if you don't do this,
Come back to haunt you,
I'm
right?
going to come back and jerk the covers off of you
Yeah,
in the middle of the
I
night.
understand.
Now, the very last day of her funeral, after she was buried, we had to go to the cemetery at midnight with a bottle of Irish whiskey.
That's too cool,
Everybody
man.
got a shot, and we turned the bottle up on the grave with the loose dirt,
That's too cool.
and we shot fireworks at midnight and had to sing "She Did It Her Way."
See, I mean, that's wonderful. That's how
you celebrate life.
That's
Yeah.
how you celebrate life. Second line is what I want. You've seen second lines in New Orleans where everybody comes out in the street and they play their drums and their horns and they're going down. You know, that's how you celebrate your life. You don't go, you know, you're going to miss the person. You're going to be sad, but send me off the way I lived, a fun, joyful time, you know?
Yeah, you know, people had my whole life go, yeah, man, Buff, man, he's an idiot.
Yeah,
you know?
yeah.
And I want to go out that way.
Yeah,
It's like,
I mean,
man, I can't believe that funeral he had was like, man, that was the most fun I've ever had in my entire life.
I always threaten to get people to stand up and tell stories, but then, you know, my family tells maybe they shouldn't do that, man. You got a lot.
Yeah.
There's a lot of stories about you. You don't know if people should be telling, you know.
Well, I told my wife all my stories. Because I knew I had really idiot friends that were going to tell anyway.
Yeah.
So it was better me. Well, I did this one time, and I did this one time, and I did this
exactly.
one time. And then my buddy comes from out to see us Saturday, and he'd been in Newfoundland, where his wife's from, and a little town called Dildo.
Yeah, I've never heard. That's a good one, man.
He brings me a shirt that says, it's got Dildo Brewery on it.
I'd love one of those. Because, I put these in my song. I do this a lot. I put these in songs a lot. North Carolina has a Climax, North Carolina.
Yeah.
And I put those in songs somewhere. We went back to Climax or Harmony, North Carolina. I mean, there's so many things like that make living life fun.
Oh, absolutely.
And yeah, that's too cool.
He brought that shirt, and he's notorious for. Did I ever tell you about the time Rob did this?
Oh yeah, yeah. So.
And Donna's like, yeah, I've heard that story.
Yeah, oh yeah. Well, I have been a collector of stories all my life, and I've written them in books and stuff over the years. But I'm a proud collector of stories, mine and others, because I have this theory that hamburger is pretty good in its basic form. We'll say a piece of meat and 2 pieces of bread. Mm-hmm. I mean, that's a pretty good deal. It's how you embellish it that makes it great.
Oh, yeah.
So my thought is a good story doesn't necessarily have to be totally true. It has to be rooted in a good story, and it's the way you embellish it is what makes it great.
See, you go back, that's the Irish heritage. You
yes,
can't
I
tell a
guess it
story without,
Sure.
It gets better every time you tell it.
Well, I mean, if it's not a good story, why tell it to begin with?
Well, absolutely.
I mean.
If it's not a good story, make it a good story.
Oh, exactly. Oh, yeah, you can customize it.
This was pretty bland if you just told it the way it was, but
Actually,
this is how I remember it. But
actually, we'll end this podcast with this. So this past weekend, I play a job, and a friend of the band, he listens to the podcast, and he listens to the band. He comes in, and he's bought me a shirt, a hat, brought a hat, and the hat says, "Sounds like bullshit to me." So you could probably sum up my life in that. I mean, because one of the things I've learned is it's easier to make if you tell the truth, people never believe it, but if you tell a lie, they'll believe it all day long.
oh yeah,
I mean, that's
a lie. Don't let the truth get in the way of a good story.
No. I mean, so yeah, it's Hey, I appreciate you coming up here to do this or
Man,
down
I'm
here.
honored to be here. I've had a ball.
Good, man. I'm glad it's been a good experience.
Yeah.
Have we missed anything that people need to know?
Michelle Lee Band.
Yeah.
Waynesville, even though it's sold out, so you can't get a ticket to it. But
But y'all play around. She got a website or something?
she does, and she's got a website, and she's on Spotify and Pandora.
She have a Facebook page,
She
possibly?
has a Facebook page. She has her personal page and stuff. And then State Line Crossing. If you want to hear some good 80s stuff from the Cars.
You got I love the
Rick
Cars.
Springfield. We do a little bit of everything like that. Loverboy.
Is there a website for that or?
We do. We have a Facebook page.
Okay.
It's got all our upcoming shows, and we're taking a little bit of time off. I think the next State Line show is the 15th of July.
Oh,
I'm also involved. I'll go ahead and throw this out there too. I'm involved with a group called the Battle of Ramsilver's Mill.
No.
Revolutionary War reenactment.
Right.
And they're doing a play this weekend, which I'm usually involved in, but I just hadn't really had time. I'll be running the fog machines.
Oh, really?
Yeah. But it's the Battle of Ramsilver's Mill, which is probably the most important Revolutionary War battle that nobody ever heard of.
True.
But it's I'm
Pete DeGregory got something to do with that.
Pete is the director.
I know Pete.
Pete is the director.
Pete's an old buddy of mine. Pete and I had to work for the same company for a number of years.
Which company was that?
That's called the U.S. Postal Service.
He's still with the Postal
I know
Service.
he is. He needs to go. I spent 37 years there.
I did not know that.
Yep.
I'll see Pete tonight.
Hell yeah, Pete knows it. Yeah, Pete. Yeah, he'll call that a job.
Yeah. I've known Pete since the 70s.
Pete.
Again, telling how old we are. We have some stories from
We do.
band trips too that.
Yeah, Pete's been in the music business too. Beside being the actor, the Lincoln County's greatest actor.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, and their most famous postmaster, I guess.
Yeah. We had some stories that were catastrophes at the time, but now you look back fondly and laugh.
Pete's a fun guy.
Oh, he's a lot of fun.
He's one of those guys you want to know in your life, you know.
When we go out, if we can get it scheduled, we go to Big Daddy's and eat oysters every Monday night.
Yeah.
And that's a lot of fun.
Yeah. Tell
I've
Pete.
got my granddaughter's eating raw oysters now.
Oh, that's great.
Oh, just,
One of my favorite things. Although I will tell you that the first person that ever did that had to be really hungry, because that's kind of freaky if you've never done it before. I mean, I can't even remember eating them, but I've eaten them all my life. But you know, the first person that had to be hungry to go, I'm popping the shell off of this thing and eating this thing, you know. But
I'm gonna eat that, man. I can eat.
I can eat them
my
too,
weight
man.
in 'em.
I've gone to places where they roll them up in wheelbarrows. You know, yeah, I mean that's just.
Well, the first trip to Big Daddy's that we all made as a group, me and Pete both went and had 3 dozen and a salad.
Yeah.
And I was that, and it was a pitcher of beer, and they had to talking about a wheelbarrow. That's how I got out the door. They had to put me in a wheelbarrow and roll me
well,
out.
I mean,
that pops.
I've gone to you know, some places, particularly Charleston, they have whole oyster festivals and all, which are pretty cool. You know, I like shrimp too.
Oh,
I can eat shrimp about like I can oysters. A lot of them.
I can too. Unboiled.
Yep, unboiled. Yep, that's it. And so, all right. Well, I appreciate you coming and doing this, man.
Well, thanks, Cindy. I appreciate being asked.
All right.